So started recruiting. Started recording 9:48. So we'll go till
Yeah,
about 10:15, 10:18, somewhere around there.
yeah.
Hey Beth, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for coming and seeing me again. Thanks for I appreciate the effort that you're putting into this. So um, congratulations on just doing your work because these doing this work can be very difficult. So you deserve some applause and you deserve some encouragement, support. So I really appreciate the work you're doing. So um, I'm interested. What are you interested in talking about today?
I've been struggling at aging, and I'm struggling because I don't feel like I'm putting enough effort into being a good child.
Hmm.
Like I don't know how to be good to them.
So by good child, you mean what?
I'm not going out of my way to spend time with them or talk to them, especially my dad.
Hmm.
I actually don't want to, but there's guilt involved
Mm-hmm.
because I don't. He's my dad, but it's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
I don't feel a connection with him, and every time I talk to him, like I did the other day, I felt like I was 8.
Hmm.
He brings me to an awful place and takes me a couple days to come out of it.
And so it feels like you kind of go back into a place that you don't want to go.
Right? He makes me feel like a child when I'm a grown adult, but he can make me feel like an awful little child.
Not like in a healthy sense in which you experience like the wonder and awe and joy of carefreeness of being a child.
No, it wasn't a good childhood. He was um he was very distant and not he didn't want me.
Hmm.
That was a mistake.
Is that something that he said directly, or is that just something you kind of gathered over time, or both?
He didn't he never talked to me, but my mom told me that he didn't want me
Hmm.
many times, that I was the reason that he stopped talking to her was my fault.
Hmm.
He didn't want 5 children. So it was mine. It was always I feel like I screwed up the family, and now as an adult I'm supposed to love them and I don't. So I feel guilt involved there. There's I'm not doing what a normal child should do for their elderly parents.
Do you feel guilty for being alive?
Feel guilty for breaking up a family that was happy before me. I feel a lot of guilt with that.
What makes you think that you were the reason for that? I mean, I know that this is something you've said, but like, um, it seems to me that if children are blessings, um, why wouldn't there have been more love to give? Why were you perceived that way, but your other siblings weren't?
I think there was more going on with my parents at the time. I'm not sure I was even created out of love. I think there was infidelity going on both sides. So at some point, he may not have thought I was his, even though I am.
Hmm.
There was so much going on. And my mom told me multiple times that he didn't want me and that he never talked to her after she got pregnant. And I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. Didn't, I mean, I was there, but I don't remember any of that to know if it was truth or not.
How do you think this has affected your self image?
I struggle because I know that no matter what I do, he'll never love me.
Hmm.
I will always have to fight the other kids when they're around him. He loves them. He calls them. And they go see him, but I don't. So I feel like I'm digging a deeper hole, making him hate me more.
Hmm.
Because I'm not when he's like 80 now. I'm not putting that effort out there that the other kids are to. I don't know how to explain it, but like to make him feel good about how he was as a father.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way for him. I actually feel anger when he calls me, or I feel like if the phone rings and I see his name on it, I'm like, maybe he died. Maybe someone's calling me to say my dad died. I'm not worried about this anymore. It's awful, but it's kind of how I feel.
Hmm.
He's
Do you feel this way towards your mom too?
It's awful because I should love her more. I don't. I struggle now because I'm not sure she was honest with me. I don't. I don't know how to get the honest answer to what really happened. Was it my fault in her eyes, in his eyes? Was I a pawn? I don't know. I just don't know how to. I don't know how to love either of them right now. And sometimes I just kind of think, well, when they're gone, it'll be easier because I won't have to try to be that child they want.
Yeah. Um, and for certain people, forgiveness comes at different paces, speeds, and desires. Is that something that you've worked through, or something that you want with them?
I I believe in a way I've forgiven them. I heard an analogy once that if somebody robs your house, you can forgive them, but you never have to let them back into your house again.
Yeah.
I sort of feel that way with my parents. Like I feel like I didn't get to have a childhood because of what they did. I was kind of on my own by 8, but I didn't feel loved, natural love from my family, and I believe that that's affected. I don't love people. I just, I will, in my mind, I will never love a guy. I don't even know that that's a real term in my brain.
Hmm.
But I've forgiven them. I just don't want them in my life. It's a balance. I can't quite. And then you feel guilt because you're like, well, they're your parents. You should love them. And I'm like, yeah, they gave me life, but they never parented me.
Yeah. You know, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. Um, I think all children go through that to some extent, maybe not to the same extent you have. Um, do you think that maybe the struggle that's come out of that as it affects your adult life is could it be that, or do you struggle with receiving love?
I don't. I don't believe. I don't know how to put it. I don't believe in being loved. Like I don't even know what that word means. Like I don't know what real love means.
Hmm.
I mean, a dog gives you real love and it's unconditional, but I don't find that my parents' love was unconditional.
Yeah.
It all came with conditions.
Well, I'd be interested in hearing what your definition of love is.
Me too. I don't a dog. Um, I with this journey now, I believe God loves me for who I am, for every little thing, and I don't have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
With my dad, I even in my mid 40s, I need to earn it. I don't tell him everything I'm doing because I kind of try to make everything sound like it's great so that he might, love me, but it's not unconditional.
Yeah.
And my mom's was always wasn't unconditional either. I was kind of her I don't know if I want to say I was always used as a pawn, but I was her security blanket.
Mm.
So I raised my mom. It was very hard to. So I would almost have to look up the word love in the dictionary to know the definition because I don't know it.
So my definition for love, and you can correct me if you think this is wrong, but this came from my mentor, and my mentor said, love is a posture that says to another, "It's good that you exist. I'm glad that you are here."
Maybe that's why I don't know what it is because I don't think they were glad that I was there.
Um,
I don't feel that as I've grown in my faith journey, I feel like I'm pushing my family even further away, which to me doesn't seem like what Jesus would want me to do, but it seems like the natural thing for me to do is to find a true love versus having those conditions.
yeah.
And so I'm pushing my parents away, probably even sort of my siblings. Anybody blood relative is kind of getting pushed away for my church family.
Though, like sometimes you really need those boundaries.
Hmm.
If you don't feel like you're capable of being loved, that could really hurt your self-image. Sometimes what you really need in life is to be around people who can like I said, posture that to you, can display that to you, that, it's good that you exist. I'm glad that you are here, that you are a source of joy to someone,
Mm-hmm.
that you are a source of delight to someone. I think that's one of the powerful things that you see in Jesus, the way that he
Mm-hmm.
looks at people, he embraces people. No one will snatch them from my hands. Clearly, that's an example of, you know, I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah, and
And
I feel that a little bit now with, I have friends from church that'll just come and talk to me or invite me out to dinner, and it's not because they want anything from me. They just want to be with me,
yeah,
which has been really, I kind of defined it one time as literally living in a foreign country, having this church family that, because I didn't know, I mean, they threw a surprise birthday party for me last year. I started sobbing in the car when I left because I'm like, they just did that because they loved me.
yeah,
You know, it wasn't to, I didn't have to earn that.
yeah,
I didn't have to be that child that struggled to be accepted.
yeah,
So it's something I'm trying to learn to deal with. It's just been really, I push those people away too because I feel like conditions might come behind the, we love you at first, but then we're going to find out something you need to work for.
yeah. Do you think there's do you have fear of opening yourself up to others because of that, like experiencing a level of intimacy?
Yes. I I can tell people my story, but I don't want them to fix it. I don't want them to feel bad for me. It's just a story. I'm from where I know I need help, where I come from. I don't want them to try to help me. I want them to just be like, you know, that doesn't define who I am, but it does kind of, I feel like a bad person sometimes because I come from that. And I come into relationships with people that know what love is, and I'm like, oh, I need to step back. I don't get that word. It's like the word joy. I don't know how to have joy because my sister's name is Joy. So I say I can't have joy because joy is a person, not an emotion.
Mm.
And and that's an awful way to live, that you can't have joy. It's like I don't know how to have, I can't have that emotion. After my birthday, I'm like, what was that feeling of crying and my whole body hurt? And a friend said that's what joy is. I'm like, no, joy is a person, not an emotion. And it's kind of been my
You
wall.
have that attachment to that
Hmm.
word, yeah. Yeah,
And
it
there's
makes
no other
sense.
word. I've even looked it up in other languages, and it's like, I can't have joy. It's just a weird thing.
For me, the alternative word for joy is gratitude, because you can even be grateful for bad things happening in your life because they brought you to where you are.
Hmm.
Um, you don't get a resurrection without a cross.
Yeah.
You don't get the sunlight without the darkness. Um, and and while the darkness is painful, you can still say, I needed that, so thank you for bringing me for that, so I can have the sun.
Yeah. I try to do that. I want to change my focus on the anger and the bitterness I feel towards my parents.
Yeah,
I get mad sometimes because I'm like, I see a little kid at church and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're 8. I was on my own.
yeah,
These are little teeny people. Did I survive? I know I had some amazing teachers, but I get so angry now with my parents as I'm in church meeting more people with 8-year-olds. And I'm like, that is just a little tiny person that shouldn't have to be alone.
I'm curious for you. Do you think that maybe what you need is a season of distant boundary from them, so that you can find the healing that maybe it's in this life or maybe it's in the next, that you can come to them with a sense of, I've forgiven you? Because it seems like to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that being near them stirs these feelings even more.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it's going to keep doing this to you, then maybe you need a season apart so that you can discover how God sees Beth, how Beth sees Beth, and how those two can come together.
And I
Because
tried. My parents being aging. I mean, my dad's 80, my mom's 77. All my siblings are older than me. They're all coming to a place of connecting with them because they're aging and, they're
yeah,
not going to live forever. So they don't want regrets that they die. So they're making their best efforts to be there while I'm that one pushing myself away.
yeah,
So now I don't just have my parents looking at me like, why are you pushing away? But now I have four other siblings
yeah,
going, well, Beth's not involved. Beth doesn't do this, and it's it's a kind of, I feel like I'm in the middle. Like I don't want to be a part of any of it, but then they do things without me. And I'm like, I should have been a part of that.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to make boundaries, but then are they healthy boundaries? Am I doing, am I being selfish? Am I being a jerk? I mean, there's a lot of different things. I feel that it's my fault.
Well,
Saying, oh,
the thing is that it's very hard to change how you feel.
mhm,
Um, like you can't just wake up and be like, I'm gonna see this person as amazing today. And when you have all this deep
mhm.
history of sorrow and pain and rejection and neglect, um, it's that's not something easy to overcome. Which is, I bring back to this. Maybe what you need is a season of healing, of just true healing, and so that you can come back and say, you weren't the best, but I'm okay now, and I forgive you.
Yeah, I don't, you know, my mom will constantly say I was a bad mom, and it's guilt. And so I'm like, I can't say anything to her because she already thinks she was a bad mom. And maybe, my dad doesn't care.
Yeah,
He's, I don't even know what he is. He's not the dad that raised me. He didn't, and I try to feel something towards him. And I know I'll never measure up to what he wants me to be. And so I don't know when there will ever come a time that I can, because I don't know that I could address it with him. He wouldn't get it.
I'm
He doesn't get me.
what I'm interested in is who does Beth want Beth to be, so that when you've come to grips with your own definition, you found your own self acceptance in that his approval won't mean as much. So, like, what do you think about that? Like, who does Beth want Beth to be?
Right now, I'm trying to make some life changes, and I don't dare tell him,
Mm,
and I haven't told him because one, I'm incurring debt. My father, being a banker, doesn't believe in debt when I
mm,
was growing up. So if I were to tell him I was bringing debt into my life, he would be very hard on me. He lives in Florida, and he'd be like, why do you have money to do that, but you can't come see your dad? Would you come to my own funeral? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't, I mean, that's the way he talks to me. And I'm like, I don't know, guess I have to come to your funeral. But and he's married. His wife does the same thing with me. And I'm like, they treat me like I'm 8. And I'm like, I don't know how to forgive these people because I don't even know that I love them.
yeah,
But he's my dad. I should love him, but I don't really think I do.
and that's something. Once again, if I can bring it back to who does Beth want Beth to be?
I want to be the person that isn't just working for money. I want to be a person that works for my passion and with my gifts. Um, and I wouldn't feel like I had to work to prove something.
Mm-hmm.
I would be working literally for God. I don't want to work to be a successful business person. I don't want to be what all my other siblings are that makes my dad accept them. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to always be trying to be accepted. I want to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to I want to go down a different path than is expected in my family.
And
My
which path
fam
would that be?
I want to go into serving people. My family's a very business orientated family.
Mm-hmm.
You go into business, you do business. You're either in banking or finance, or that's where money is. Very money. They're always about the money. How much money do I have? What kind of car do I drive? You know, it's not who I am. I'm like, I live in a double wide. I will never live up to the family standards. So I feel like I have to accept that. I have to know that I can do this for me and not to make them happy. And I have to come to the conclusion that that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's been a struggle because I can do okay if my dad doesn't call me.
Yeah.
But then he calls me. Then it's like, backwards. I feel like I'm always starting over. But I can't tell him not to call me. I don't call him.
Yeah.
I've talked to him twice this year, maybe. I think maybe twice this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be different than my family. But I feel like they won't love me then, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
It's a fine line between will they walk away? And that's what I struggle with real people from church and stuff. I'm like, if I let them too close down, they'll walk away. So I shouldn't invest in anybody.
I think sorry, a friend brought this to me, and he said, there's 3 things that make us who we are. The first is, I am what I do. So accomplishments, achievements, etc. Second one is, I am who I tell myself I am. So it's those inner narratives that we have, those inner beliefs about ourselves. But the third one is the most, I think, profound. And that's, I am who others make me. And this is one of the most hard things because, so, you're a daughter because you have a dad. You're a coworker because you have coworkers. You're a friend because you have friends. And sometimes when those relationships aren't reconciled, those parts of ourselves ache.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't change those things, which is why I brought up a season of healing, that you would surround yourself in a community of love, of friends, of mentors, of classmates who really embrace you for you, so that part of you that makes you who you are can start to feel like it's lovable, to mend and heal some of those wounds that exist in the past. But then also running some of these different narratives, because it seems like some of these beliefs about who you want to be are trickled in with this. So I ask, who does Beth want Beth to be? And who does God want Beth to be? And so that way, those ways that you would feel confident and secure in them, because at the end of the day, you're not looking for their approval. You have your own, and you're not looking for, and even when you don't always have your own, you have God's.
Yeah, and I think my first step for me will be to trust that God loves Beth for who Beth is.
Yeah.
And I don't have to fake my opinion. I don't have to lie about what I'm doing, or, not go into specifics about my life with, God knows. I don't have to hide anything from him. He knows.
You don't have to defend yourself.
Yeah. And he just, it took me 40 some years to realize that he even loved me.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you love me? I read something the other day, and it just had to do with how much Jesus just loves you. You don't have to earn it, and it's just like every time I read that, every time I read Deuteronomy 31:6 at the last part where it says he will never leave you nor forsake you, I'm like, that is an amazing thing to me, that he won't leave me.
Yeah.
He won't die. He won't walk away. He'll show up.
Yeah.
If I'm somewhere, he's there. I don't have to invite him. I don't have to look at the door to see if he's coming in. I don't have to think that, maybe he's not going to show up because something more important came up. He's just there, and for me, that's been my first step, is to learn that. And now to try to figure out, because what I want is what God wants for me. I want him to lead me. And sometimes I'm a little pushy. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do today? I know it's not that easy, but I really want to be led by the word and by God to figure out where he wants Beth to be.
Well, I think that you should already see that that's a beautiful thing.
Hmm.
That's a beautiful desire. The thing about desires too is that it's a reflection of the end. That like if you have that desire, it'll carry you out to the end. You know, he who began a good work in you will carry it out into completion.
Hmm.
Um, and that you can already receive that that's the goodness of God shining through you.
Yeah, and that's what I want. I want Beth to be a person that people see Jesus in. I had a guy, a person tell me one time, he's like, I see Jesus in you. And I'm like, that is the definition of me. I would like people to
Yeah.
see Jesus in me.
It's like what Paul says, right? It's no longer me, but Christ who lives within me.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
that's, to me, the greatest compliment is that somebody can see Jesus in me. And I want people to hear my story and I want them to feel loved.
Mm.
I don't want people to think they have to try with me.
Do you feel like you have good mentors who not only can reveal to you the ways in which they see Christ in you, but also challenge you to harness your abilities that look like Christ already and make them more Christ-like?
Not a lot. I mean, I still, probably because I push people away, I still struggle with letting people mentor me.
Yeah,
They say people walk with you on this path, and I'm like, yeah, but I can do it myself. Because,
yeah,
you know, I'm still working on my relationship with God. I don't have time to work on my relationships with people. It's kind of how I feel sometimes. I don't know that I have a, I have one guy in my life that, you know, you call him a counselor friend. I've been seeing, going to him for quite a few years just to bounce things off of, and he's a very strong Christian. And he literally was my first brother in Christ. I didn't even know what that meant. He leads me to the Word. He leads me through parables. He knows that's how I learn.
yeah.
You know, he always says he helped me move rocks so that my faith could grow. Things like, I mean, he's that kind of friend to me, and that's probably one of the only ones. I mean, I sometimes feel like I'm far behind others in my church.
Have you?
Like they've all been Christians forever, and I'm this 40-year-old coming in like a cubby in Awanas. I feel like a 5-year-old. So it's kind of embarrassing sometimes to be that way.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what though? The same thing was happening in the Bible with the Jews and the Gentiles. Like the Jews already had this whole way of path to God, and the Gentiles did was do it there as new Christians. You
Hmm.
know, they were told what they were doing is wrong, but it was up for the apostles and the leaders of the church to say no, what they're not doing is wrong. It's just different than yours.
Yeah, I just feel like as an adult, it's hard to be a new Christian, probably. It's, I associate with the little kids at church. I'm like, ooh, they're learning this Bible verse. I learned it too. Or
Yeah,
the adults, maybe it's part of me wanting to be that, feeling like that 8-year-old sometimes. I feel like sometimes I'm maybe stuck in being an 8-year-old. Like my Christian viewpoint right now is that of an 8-year-old. I don't have a lot of knowledge regarding. So I feel like they're all way better Christians than I am. I'm like, oh, I gotta, you know, keep learning to earn my way.
well, let me encourage you and say that, you know, if any of us had the faith the size of a mustard seed, we could move a mountain.
Hmm.
Ain't nobody moving mountains. So
No.
I don't want you to belittle your own faith. I don't want you to question your own faith. I don't want you to compare your own faith because none of us are moving mountains.
Hmm.
We're all faith isn't measured by the amount of Bible verses you know. A lot of it can be by how much you live out those Bible verses, how much you trust God with those Bible verses to navigate your life.
Yeah.
And then also know that God speaks to you through those Bible verses. That the Bible itself is not God, but that God speaks through the Bible to you. And the way you receive that is a measurement of your faith. Because a lot of times, once you've read those Bible verses over and over and over again, they can start to lose their meaning, just like anything that you do over and over and over again.
Hmm.
So I don't want you to judge yourself. I don't want you to criticize yourself. Just keep doing what you're doing and receive what you can through God. Keep open hands, because that's what faith is all about.
Yeah, but it's a learning. It's trying to, it's being that little kid trying to be a 40-some-year-old.
Yeah,
It's a mixed message there that I battle with.
yeah,
But I'm just trusting God. I mean, that's my belief right now. He is my family. which is great. He's my father. He's my real
Oh,
father.
Jesus is your brother, right? He's the son.
Yeah. So,
No, they that was a theologian named Jürgen Moltmann said that the Trinity is the Holy Family, like he calls it. So you've God the Father, Jesus the Son, who's our brother, because we're also children of God, and then the Holy Spirit is the mother, since the one who gives birth, gives rebirth, and there's passages in the Bible which says that God is nurturing us in our womb, in God's womb. Clearly, that has feminine overtones.
hmm
So God is your family.
yes. It's just making proper boundaries is what I try to do. And it's difficult when you're of a certain age where you feel like your parents could die and you have regret. I don't want to have regrets either, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh,
I'm at peace with the fact that, I mean, I believe both my parents are, going to heaven.
yeah.
You know,
Could this be a season where you trust them into God's care?
I do pray for them.
No, that's I mean. So what I mean by that is like I had a grandfather who had dementia,
hmm
and he had forgotten most of what he remembered about God. And even though he was a minister, at some point, even though they may have forgotten God, you know that God has not forgotten them. And so you learn to trust that person into the hands of God,
hmm
that God's going to take care of them. And so maybe this is not a season where you can take care of them, but you can trust that God will.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea to try to, yeah, let him love them when I can't. I know he loves them.
Yep.
I mean, they're his children like I am, and someday maybe I can love them through the eyes of Jesus as who they are as God's children.
Yeah.
You know, but right now at this time, I don't know that that's as easy as it
Well,
sounds.
you got your own healing, your own journey
hmm
that God's going to bring you through. And hopefully, if it's not in this life, then when you get to heaven, you'll be able to run towards them and give them a big hug.
Yeah, I was thinking heaven though. You're not talking about all the bad stuff. Okay, my dog is coming. I hear.
Okay.
The dog's coming. Sorry,
No, it's all right.
there's my love.
Yeah.
She'll be in a minute. It'll be funny.
Um,
I gotta push this back just a bit because I might get attacked.
Okay.
She's little, but she's chubby.
Okay.
Anyways,
Well,
can't be
we've already
skinny.
passed half an hour, so
Fine.
would you like
Wait.
would you like me to pray for you?
Sure.
I don't have my smooth voice that Shauna loves. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for never abandoning us. Thank you for never leaving us. Thank you that in Jesus, Emmanuel, that you are always with us. Thank you for knowing our loves. Thank you for knowing our pains, and thank you for caring for us in both.
I'm getting attacked. Here she is.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just want to pray for Beth, Lord, that she would trust you with this season of her life to know when she's capable of having this relationship and when she's not, to know when she needs to take care of her schoolwork and do other things for herself as she starts to be who Beth wants to be, who you want Beth to be. I pray that you would allow her to trust and move forward in that and not to be dragged down by the past. I pray for healing and for love and compassion and mercy and all sorts of pain. Thank you for your love and your caring and tender nature. Amen.
Amen. Gabby, come here. Come here. Up. Come here. Oh, you stink. Were you at Grandma's? Watch this. I'll let you meet Gabby. Come on up. Gabby, up. 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 Oh, for Pete's sake. There's my
Oh,
child.
that's beautiful.
I love you. That's what love is. Oh, you stink. What were you in at Grandma's? You stink. Why don't you go? Yeah, you're home. Okay. There. Can you see her? This is her face. Isn't she cute?
She's beautiful.
She's fat. She weighs 20. Go see Joy. Go have her give you a bone. 1 second. Joy, are you in the house? Nope. You go up north and end up with 3,000 bags. Come back with my mom. Get cents of them. All right, cool. There. That's my deep dark crap.
No, it's everybody's deep.
And I've dealt with a lot of it, and realistically, but yeah, my dad is something. Oh, hey, Joy. Keep hearing. I'm still on here, but do you have a lot to carry in? Oh, then will you take Gabby and shut my door once you're in? Thank you. She just groans. And you come back from my mom's and she's like, oh, I sent you meatballs. I'm like, thank you. I mean, much. I wish you'd come home. I'm like, no. Yeah, we're into third generation of guilt now, I think. Maybe the fourth. My niece has two boys, a 4-year-old now and a 1-year-old, and his birthday was this last weekend, and I didn't go up for it. Yeah, I'm old. No, I was a very young aunt. I was like 15 when she was born, so we're really close, but she lives in Roseville.
I don't even have any like nieces or nephews.
No, my mom had 5 kids and got 3 grandkids, 2 from the oldest and 1 from the next one. The rest of us don't have kids. And I said, well, now you have more great grandkids than you had grandkids, so now you're on a bonus run. Because those 2 of my sister's 2 kids there's a 4th baby coming soon, so I'm like, look at you. So, yeah, there's guilt involved there too. Crazy. I don't like guilt. I always say our family pours guilt on everything like gravy. So, all right. Well, it went well.
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting is that like 2s, 3s, and 4s on the Enneagram, they're all susceptible to shame a lot more than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A weird connection here. What's my thing doing? It was like whopping. The heat kicked in and the computer went bloop. That was weird. I know that I carry that like a badge of honor. It's, I feel guilt for everything in our family, and I've learned to deal with the fact that it was probably not all truth, and I was used as a pawn to make my mom needed one child on her side, and it ended up being me. The others had a relationship with him, and I didn't. So I've come to try to, in a way, I had to deal with forgiving her, even though in my growing up brain, she was the perfect mom, because that's what I made her believe. But you always do so well. I always get so nervous.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like I can talk to a person very clearly, like my friend last night for 3 hours, and I was using the tools. Like, it was kind of funny. I said, is it bothering you that I'm rephrasing to get you to go further into things? She goes, I thought it seemed like a little different conversation. I said, yeah, I'm using you. And I said, I'll keep doing that, forever now. And that was easy. But when I'm trying to do it for a class, I get, like that I have to think about it, then my brain doesn't think as much. I'm a naturally good communicator, but when you have to think about what you're doing, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I have gotten better at it, though. It's kind of fun because I'm getting better at listening. It's like, yay. Well, I can hear. All right. Let's see that she gets in here first, and I can shut the door because I don't want to. Joy, are you in the house? That's the dog. You're not Joy, you're Gabby. Gabby, are you in? We're good? Can you shut the door? Take her out. Gabby, go outside. Go with Joy. And go to bed. Go to bed. She just stares at my sister but won't go near her. Go outside. Okay, shut the door. Thank you. We have opposite ends of the house. My little double wide. All right, she's gone. Dog is weird. All right, are you ready? Yeah. I gotta set my taper thing because then I can do it at work when no one knows that I'm listening to the tape. I can transcribe at my desk. Today, I had like all these
demons.
Yeah, time for demons. Okay, let me figure out what's going on here. Wait, I gotta get off of here. What's this doing? Hold on. Recorder. Yeah, I put this titanium recorder on my phone. It works pretty slick. Hi, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you're able to come back for another session. It's good to work on things more than just once. I'm wondering what you'd like to, what's been going on lately. Anything?
Um, no, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to verbatim that.
Oh no, it's all right. No, so I've been having some, I have some struggles with letting people get closer to me, and it's hard to know where one issue begins and another one ends, and as far as where that comes from, or if it's just a lifestyle, a whole history of things that all have played their roles in forming that. Um, so it's like we could talk about some of these things. I feel like a lot of them I've dealt with in the past, but doesn't necessarily mean that they don't influence me anymore. So
So you said that you're feeling like I missed your word now because I got confused. You feel like you're not making connections with people. Is
yeah,
that,
yeah, I can feel
is there
disconnected
certain
or detached, um, or like I don't feel like I'm making strong connections with people. Some of this I know can be depression, but it also could be that this is causes my depression. So it's once again like where does one thing begin and another one end? But so for me, um, there's like three or four really events that would contribute to the first one. Um, happened when I was 10 years old and I witnessed a murder. Um, my dad took me to a baseball game on the south side of Chicago because my cousin was getting was the White Sox. It's like the ghetto of Chicago. So we went to a White Sox game because the next day my cousin was getting dedicated, and he went to the gas station because we ran out of the gas in the ghetto, and two black guys, I'm assuming in a game because they were the things they were yelling about, pulled out guns and started shooting each other right in front of me.
oh,
Uh,
that's
yeah. They one ran away, the other crawled to the street corner. My dad didn't hear a thing because there was bulletproof glass. You don't really hear those things through that thick of glass.
mhm.
So when he came out, I was in a state of shock and I didn't even know how to talk or process it. I never. My parents didn't even know until I was in my 20s.
Wow. So
It was
did you weren't
repressed
able
deeply.
to,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
like when
repressed.
it happened, were your parents, I mean, your dad, I'm sure came out of the building. He was inside paying
Yeah,
is where the boat. So when he came out,
he didn't even
did
see the
he
guy.
ask it? Oh, so he didn't,
He was
he didn't
completely
know.
unaware.
And so he just got in the car and you drove off and nothing was.
Yeah, and so I was just in a state of shock and I couldn't talk about things. I was just remember being extremely quiet. Um,
So when you were in your, I mean, you repressed it. You were 10. When you were in your 20s, how did it actually come
well,
out that you were able to have a conversation?
oh,
Had you remembered all those years or?
so I'll add the other story that made that happen. So when I was 12 to about 14, there was also an older boy in my neighborhood who was physically and sexually abusive towards me. Um, and long story short, I mean, it happened for several years. It stopped because I hit a humongous growth spurt. I grew 10 inches
Mhm.
in 3 months. So obviously he stopped doing these things. But when I was in my early 20s, I had a emotional breakdown. I was sleeping about 1 hour a day because I was having PTSD flashbacks in my dreams. So it would go back and forth between the physical and sexual abuse one time and then sometimes other times, but then it would oscillate back and forth with the murder. So I slept for about an hour a day. Afraid to go to sleep, afraid to go back to sleep. For about 6 or 7 months, and I pretty much went insane.
And that was in your early 20s, you
Yeah, I
said.
was like
So
20. just before turning 23.
So
And then I had one relationship. Um, like I was briefly engaged in my early 20s to a girl, and we broke up. And so what was so hard about it was that we never had sex, but it was more physical than obviously I have with my friends.
mhm.
And it was actually this very healing thing, because like it was the first time I'd allow myself to experience that outside of such a broken
Yeah.
dynamic. And um, so, we were engaged for like a week, but then I found out she broke up with me and told me that she was cheating on me. And so I went into another like significant deep depression. And then I had surgery, and I don't know why this triggered me, but after I had surgery, people started touching me again, which is what triggered this
Hmm.
breakdown. And so it lasted for 6 or 7 months. Started going to therapy. Dropped out of school because I was pretty much failing out, which contributes to the later
Hmm.
bouts of depression I've had. um,
So that, I mean, it's awful that starting at 10 to witness something like that. I honestly can't even imagine. And then when you're 20s, still not, were you able to talk about it? You said you went into counseling.
yeah.
So this isn't your first time in counseling. Did you find that you found any relief in talking about it with a counselor
Yeah.
versus family or friends? I mean, it's not the type of stuff you probably wanted
No.
to talk with your parents about.
No, I mean, my mom was okay with hearing some of it. Um, they mostly just felt bad for me. They're also worried about me killing myself. Like they were legit worried about me killing myself. Um, but no, I talked about it in therapy. I had a few close friends I could talk about it with, and some of that helped, and some of it, like I look back and I thought, I'm not sure how helpful it was. I mean, to experience such deep trauma, I don't know how helpful it is just to go and relive
Mhm.
it. Um, Especially now knowing what I know about certain forms of treatment that actually help with these things. But um, I think what helped the most was sort of just coming to an acceptance, because I was running away from it in the past,
Yep.
and now it's just like, yeah, that happened, and it didn't kill me, so I'm still here. And
But you said you don't, you're having a hard time with connections now. Do you have any of those same connections that know this part of Mike, or do they?
well, I mean, like my closest friends know this part of me. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not something that we like go around and talk about. So
No.
this is not like normal Friday night chatter. Like,
Yeah.
hey, the Twins are playing, and also Mike got raped. Like that's just
Yeah.
not normal Friday night. Banter. But
But they stood by you through it and they love you through. I
some
mean,
of them, some of them.
I mean, might be something you would maybe lose friends over if they,
Oh,
some
some
people
some
maybe.
were deeply afraid of talking about it,
Hmm.
and they didn't want to. But some of them, um, yeah, I mean, I was hurt by some of them because when I started talking about it, some of them told me I was just being overly sensitive and whatever. Those friends are obviously not a part of my life anymore. But as far as that, like I know that like the types of wounds these create, they're not healed overnight. They're healed over time, and a lot of it is just trusting people again, which is once again not healed overnight. It's healed over time. Um, so I've had some girlfriends who um, like get freaked out over hearing about it, and they can't handle that rawness. I've had others who try to fix me, which that doesn't really need to be fixed. It's just things that like this just if I need to talk about it, I'll talk about it with you. If I don't, I won't. If you feel like I'm being distant, obviously bring that up. But no, I mean, so like, but there's like stuff where you know, like I don't always know how to form um, like the healthiest like sexual attachment. Like not like I'm going and having premarital sex, but like about either being too hesitant or being too pushed forward first. So like I'm I don't know how to push that line because like sometimes the experience of having that as a possibility stirs up anxiety.
Well, if you had said that, when the doctors touched you and you went back into
Yeah.
having some of those flashbacks, do you find that any of that continues? I mean, if you're trying to be in a relationship
Mm.
with a woman and they get close to you like that, do you feel like you want to push it away, or you just
Well, I did it all.
repress the feelings and
Yeah, it all depends on the type of touch. So like
hmm
I'm actually very touchy feely now in terms of like hugging my friends, patting them on the back, shaking hands,
hmm
all the time. So a lot of times like the other side of it is if I don't feel like I have some type of connection or attachment or history or commitment with you, if you push it too soon, it
hmm
freaks the heck out of me.
yeah, triggers some of
It's,
those memories that,
yeah, it's like this for me. And I know it's pretty common for a lot of people because a lot of people have been through those same things. Um, for me, um, I don't just do this with the intent of it being casual.
hmm
Like it signifies something to me, um, and casual nature to me opens up to wounding me again.
when you said, you don't, you diminish it in yourself because others have gone through the same thing, but nobody is Mike and nobody went through exactly what Mike
Right,
went
right,
through.
right. Yeah,
It's real, it's easy to say that, maybe, probably easier to say that, people have had it worse than me or people have dealt with this and people have come forward. But
yeah.
where is Mike at in it? Where did Mike, do you feel that there's further, like it's being brought down into you further, or are you
Yeah.
able to maybe bring it out? And
Yeah, so
I
like
mean, it's hard to forgive a murder in front of me. You don't know the people,
right. Yeah, I mean the murder stuff doesn't bother me as much anymore because it's like that
Yeah.
happened. I don't even know the people. I don't know the guy who
Yeah.
presumably died. Um, I'm not in situations where I'm in potentially violent circumstances, so it's more so like the abuse has more of an effect on me.
Mhm.
Um, what's hard about being a millennial is that sex is so casual.
Yeah.
um, the sexual like dynamic is so casual. So for me, that's difficult. For other people, it's normal. So when it's normal for them and it's not for me, it creates some problems relationally. Um, Frankly, some of those people I don't really want to be in relationships to begin with.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, but
Yeah. I don't really want those people that think that, that really want that in their, that person in their life. You're not that person, so,
yeah, no, it's not.
God's not going to put somebody with you, hopefully, that, you're not going to be like, oh, I need this person that's
No, no,
really,
no, no, no. But at some point though, like that is a part of at least a marital relationship, and you need to be able to deal with that. And who knows? I mean, that might be something too. Like I might be okay with that in time.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where I don't know if I'll be there until I get there.
Yeah.
Um,
And that, in a way, that's a really good way to look at it because you're, you're seeing it as something that is really important.
yeah,
It isn't well to Mike. It's very important to you. You understand the significance of that trust factor. I
yeah,
mean, there's trust involved because you were put in a position that may have taken that trust of people away,
right.
you know, which is it's, it's damaging. I mean, there's it's something that have you been able to, with the abuse, is that person anywhere in your world
Yeah,
anymore? I
they are.
mean, do
Yeah,
you actually run into them still,
frequently.
and have they ever acknowledged the wrong that they did?
Yeah, in their own way. Um, Never like I'm so sorry. I don't realize the damage it did to your life. More so of a I know this person feels guilty.
Hmm. Do you feel there'll come a time when you can say to that person that, hey, look what you did to my life? I mean, not
Yeah, I'm not
in a
really
way of
interested.
forgiveness almost.
I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
You know, um, I don't want, because that person feels guilty, I want them to work that out with God.
Yeah.
And maybe me telling them that I forgive them is part of that. But um, like, I don't want to cause them to um, feel worse about it, since I know they already do. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in, loving your enemies, as Jesus told us
Hmm.
to. And because this person was close to me, um, I don't feel the need to necessarily protect them, but to recognize that they're a person too, and that Jesus forgives people, um, and that even though I may still have some hurt, and they have some hurt from it, doesn't mean that both of us are supposed to suffer forever
Yeah.
because I'm still hurting.
Yeah. It's really a difficult position if you actually have to be in a place where you run into this person because that memory can keep triggering back and
You know what's interesting is that being with them doesn't trigger it.
really.
No, it doesn't. The last time it was triggered was I have an ex girlfriend who is no longer a Christian. She's very much into casual sex now, and she was talking about her new relationship, and now she's into BDSM. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like 50 Shades of Grey stuff.
Yeah. It's like I don't know all the
Yeah,
terminology.
yeah.
I'm not a millennial anymore.
No, and so she's like, I love it when I'm having sex with my boyfriend and he chokes me, and for some reason that triggered me.
Hmm.
It was her like, oh, do you realize what you're saying?
Because that's, I mean, it seems like you have a relationship with God and you know what love is and what, Jesus loves.
Yeah,
So to see something like that, that isn't love.
no,
I
it's
don't,
not.
it's,
No,
and knowing what you went through, that wasn't any form of love. That was a form of power.
exactly. It's abuse of power. It's abuse of trust. Yeah, but that was the last time it was really triggered. Was that, and it's one of those things where it's like, unfortunately, too, that's becoming very common. So like, I
Hmm.
have reluctancy to enter into a relationship and be like, will you be willing to do that? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And and people seem to be very bold now. The
yeah,
millennial,
there.
there's a lot more boldness in talking about things that you may, one, not feel comfortable. And so it's very, I can see where that would be very hard for you to even let somebody get close
Yeah.
with the fear of the way people, I mean, if you're seeing a friend of yours that way that you trusted and probably cared for one time, it's maybe a little,
Well,
you bring somebody in closer, they're gonna, after a date or two, start coming up with some freaky
yeah.
stuff,
You want to choke me?
you know.
No, I'm good. Like
Yeah, it's very,
if you're into that, like, I don't know, like maybe like rep, grab some rope and then just like yank yourself. I don't know.
it's, yeah. I mean, having been, where you've been and stuff, there's gonna be a tough balance there to find, do you feel like that you go, I mean, are you involved in a church? Do you have connections where you said your friend that is that way is not a Christian anymore?
Yeah, yeah.
You
She.
feel in the Christian community that maybe you'd be a little more likely to let somebody come into your.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've dated girls like that too. Um, I've dated very good girls who, um, won't do that, and so, um, the hard part is one of the things I learned about sexuality, and I learned this from just being a member of my family, is my parents have still in their mid 50s have a very strong and sexual active sex life. I know this because um, they go over to my sister's house to help repair her house on the weekends, and my sister will text me, "They're doing it again. They're doing it again." And thinking if you've been married 30 plus years and you're still going strong like that, it must be a really powerful element of your relationship. And that you must not only really enjoy it, but must really bring you together. And you look at the way that God talks about sex in the Bible as two people becoming one. I mean, that's a very strong image. And then you hear the poetic language used in Song of Songs about how connected and bonded these people are through physical contact. And yet at the same time, I also know firsthand about how much this can destroy a life. So, on one hand, I understand how essential it is. And then on the other hand, I know how essential it is to do it in a way that God will call us to do it.
And so with your parents, you said they've been married, I don't remember how many years you
30,
said, but
30
they,
plus years. I mean, it's still
30 plus years. So you've seen love, real love. I mean,
feeling in that way, yeah, especially.
so you have an idea what love is.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for, probably 30 years ago was a little different to finding love than nowadays. So you have that to look at, and then yet you have this. I can't even say it, there's no love involved in what that person did to you.
Yeah.
So you are walking on probably a hard balance of trying to figure out where does Mike belong? Who does Mike let in?
Well, to me, it's like discernment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I know what one way does to you, and I've also seen what the other way does it to you. And one, it's like the passage. God says, "I set before you life and death. Choose
Mm-hmm.
life." It's like discerning between life and death, and connecting myself with people in which that brings me life, as opposed to connecting myself with brings me death. The hard part, though, is that when you've experienced some of these things, like I've had in the past, you can bind yourself together in ways that don't bring you life, because that those experiences, they warp your sexuality.
Yeah.
And so I'm relearning my own sexuality.
And I saw you light up when you talked about your parents and their love. I mean,
Which
it's
is
kind of
funny
weird
to
to
me.
think
It's
of your
funny.
parents to, it's
Yeah.
an odd, parents, they shouldn't be doing that
Yeah.
anymore, but it's great,
So it's one of the things I don't like to think about it, but good for them.
but you know that you do light up about it, which was kind of fun
It's
to see
funny to
because
me. It's funny. It's
yeah.
like
Well, that you and your sister have a communication about it is kind of,
they're doing it again. And so
yeah.
it's like sometimes like they'll even bring my dog over with them, and I'm like, poor Jericho, like he's been scarred.
Do not do that around my child.
Yes, exactly. His poor eyes have seen things.
Yeah, need
Um,
that.
but
But like, you are you still dealing with bouts of depression? Do you feel?
oh,
It's
for
been.
sure.
I mean, is it up and down? Do you feel that you have high highs and low lows, or
Mm,
is it kind of?
I have what's called seasons, not seasonal, but seasons.
Mm-hmm,
Like they can last. Like I definitely have clinical depression.
mm-hmm,
Where they last, can go between 4 to 9 months, and then I won't see it for 5 or 6 years.
mm-hmm.
A lot of that's
And during those times, you can identify that you're. I mean, do you see yourself going into those moments of those seasons, or are you deep into them before you're like, oh, I'm back here,
yeah.
and have to.
The feeling is like I'm drowning,
Mm-hmm,
and so like you kind of have a cognizant awareness that like the water's getting higher and higher. So like that's the way I feel, and sometimes, some days it feels like the water's dropped, and some days it's once again it's back over your head. Um, so like I'm kind of coming out of a season of depression right now. Things are getting better. Um, I suffered one in my early 20s, one in my mid 20s now, one in my early 30s. Um, so I don't freak out like I did the first time I had,
mm-hmm.
because it was that first time I didn't know what was going on, and I thought like, oh gosh, this is never gonna end. Now having been through several bouts of it, I know that it'll end. I mean, because of that, um, I don't freak out. I don't think the world's over. I don't think like I don't allow myself to have a lot of trust in the feeling like it's gonna be like this forever or life is pointless and meaningless. I might feel that way, but I don't trust my feelings.
I mean, with your, you've come out of that valley before that season. You've come out of the,
It'll come out
Jesus takes us.
again.
Yeah, and that's such a positive, even though you're there, and it's hard to at that moment see the light. I mean, it's like you're seeing the light. You
Yeah,
know that, right now I'm in this season, but I have a season. I mean, that is great to hear
yeah. No,
that
it's
you can
it's
look,
it's
maybe it's a hard time. I mean, you identify with that, and
yeah. No, I mean I'm fully aware of both. I am fully aware there's still light, even though I don't always see it. Um, and a lot of times for me, hope is rooted in patience.
hmm
It means that, I mean, hope is something that's going to come, meaning I have to wait for it. So depression is often the same way. Like, I'm going to keep living my life. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep, do my best with eating and exercising and doing homework and going to work. Um, maintain as strong connections with people as possible. And until that, and do that until it's over. Um, and I just have to wait. I don't know if it'll be a week from now, or 2 months from now, or 5 months from now. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that has an end. Um, I mean, it could be just summer. I just need a little more sunshine in my life. I mean,
well, you said that you continue going forward. You have your friends, you have these things, which is, great. Are there other tools that you have found, be going into the scripture, music,
yeah, music.
other outlets that you've been able to, with age, understand help you and are tools that you can use to help yourself? Or, 'cause
Psalm.
sometimes we have to look at ourselves and help ourselves a
Yeah, yeah.
little.
The Psalms are very helpful. Because like, I mean, you can go in those and read like, okay, this is very dark. Some of these are very, very dark.
Hmm
Ecclesiastes has always been very helpful for me. Because it's like the book starts off almost like in a bout of depression. Everything is meaningless.
Yeah.
Throughout the book, everything is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. You get to the last chapter, everything is meaningless except for God.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just keeps you okay. I know what's important here. And then sometimes it's Job. That you just come to an acceptance that not all suffering has a meaning in this life. That we're not always going to have answers, but doesn't mean that God has somehow been unfaithful and that God has somehow left us. It's just that we have to accept that sometimes there's, powers outside of us that are going to attack us or take things away from us. And I may not understand it, but maybe it's not for me to understand in this life.
The Bible is such an amazing tool, and I'm so glad to hear that you know that it's a tool that you can go to. I mean,
Yeah,
Job is a tough one because I mean, the stuff he went through, and you're like, wow. I mean, he came out of it.
yeah,
We all come out, and if we don't come out of it until we, we're believers, we're gonna go,
yeah.
we're gonna come out of it in the end, and
Right.
just it seems like you have that's a good anchor.
Yeah. The big thing too is that even when I feel myself weakening, my grip is loosening up on God. To remember that even though that happens, that once again that God holds on to those, like God is clenched onto us. So even when I'm not strong enough to hold on, like just to have faith that God is holding on to me,
Hmm
and that alone is not going to separate me from God.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, faith wise, but sometimes I know from experience if you're going down like that, Satan is attacking, and
Yeah,
I sometimes have to, you know, realize that the troubles are not of this world.
yeah,
He is fighting to get me back, and so I go deeper into the word, and I don't know, and it sounds like you also have used that as a way to experience God's love, even though you may not feel at that moment.
yeah. I mean, it's the beauty of being a seminary a graduate is that you have all these like tips at your hands, like things you can
Hmm.
always pull out and be like, that's what that meant. That's what that meant. That's what that meant, and be like, and it never leaves you. I mean, that's why I'm so drawn to the Book of Romans.
Hmm.
It says, the first few chapters are we've screwed everything up, and the rest of the book is basically God's like, but I'm faithful to you and I will never leave you.
Hmm.
And it's just okay. It's like
Yeah,
things
such a
might.
promise, Romans.
Yeah, exactly. It's like things are screwed up. Okay, God's not gonna leave me. Cool. We'll just keep grinding it out and we'll keep dealing with this day by day, and just
Yeah.
trust that the light's gonna come through.
So back in, when you were younger, did you have God like you do now? I mean, it sounds like you have a very good relationship. When you went through it in your 20s,
Yeah.
was it,
Mm.
do you feel like you had that strength of him with you that, you understood he was with you?
See, I don't know how to answer that. Um, um, do I experience and know God personally, as in me as an individual? Absolutely not. I know that far more substantially now, but I feel like God was immensely close to me because of all the people He brought into my life to look after me. That wouldn't let me stray from, I feel like, a personal calling that He's placed on my life. So I've had incredible mentors and friends that um, have always been there, and I believe God brought those people into my life. So while I didn't know that personally, didn't have the answers or the experiences that I do now, I feel like God was immensely faithful. I know that now, and God was always like near me through the resources that were brought into my life.
That's such a gift when you can look back and see where God was with you, even when you didn't know
Yeah, yeah,
that he was with, you look at a person, think, wow, that was a God person. He put that person in my
yeah,
life
yeah,
you know, those are some amazing connections to have.
yeah.
And it's something we probably don't see until we get a little older.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and to me, um, once again, being a seminary student, a graduate, it's really easy to fall upon knowledge as a source of truth. But the thing is like you can't know an idea, you can't experience an idea. But I know the faithfulness of God through my friends,
Hmm.
and I know how their faithfulness to God, in their friendship to me, has been something that's drawn me both closer to them and to God.
And that's, going forward in life and what your hopes and dreams, to know that those people were with you and you've learned so much from
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
God put them in your life, these experiences in your life. And although they were traumatic and impactful on who you became, you can also use them now, some of those pains and hurts to go forward and see in others and be God's light to others. I mean,
absolutely.
that's,
Yeah, no, I mean, I always say, I've said in the past to myself, everything doesn't happen for a reason, but everything happens with a reason.
hmm.
I don't think that there was a reason why that person did that to me outside of their own brokenness. I don't think there's a reason why those people shot each other, at least as it relates to me, outside of their own brokenness. But God has used that way that's broken me to help others, and so it happened with a reason. And that has given me a tremendous amount of joy. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, like this wasn't, like, it makes sense of something that was nonsensical.
yeah, because he didn't make the sin and the world hurt you, but he was with you and can heal
And now
you forward.
that can be a gift to others.
Hmm.
And so it's like it's not purposeless. And it's
No,
not like that just like somehow I'm supposed to be tormented by it for the rest of my life. It's no, God will use it for good even when Satan intended it for evil.
yeah, exactly. Satan, wants to use those things against you in depression and everything and bring them back and bring you where God is willing to take those hurts and bring them forward, which
Yeah.
is such a gift from God. I mean, that he doesn't leave us when things bad, he's there when they're happening. It's sin of this earth, but he can also help you use that
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
being there, which is so, to me, it's such a gift. I mean, it just makes you smile to know that as bad as things are, and that we don't have to forget them, but we can grow from them and use them to help others.
God is very creative.
Yeah,
That's
he
that's
can.
the way I look at it.
He fights for us.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he doesn't. He didn't want us to hurt, but he wants to help. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we've gone. And here's a funny little story. I'm just going to tell you at the end of this. I taped this, but I have my headphones in, so it didn't tape anything.
Oh no.
I hope you taped it
I did. I have the whole thing.
because I got 35 minutes of nothing. The head tapes off my computer. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's how it is at this time of night.
Yeah.
Awesome
No.
one.
Well, I will
Let's
stop recording.